Kurosaki Kai, a dual-color prodigy known as the Purple King. In his shadow stands his older brother, our MC Ray, completely colorless and magically inert. Ray clings to hope as a porter in his brother's party until they confront a dungeon boss, Kronos, the god of time and space. With a wave of his hand, Kronos effortlessly annihilates the entire party, including Kai. Cornered and facing certain death, Ray's desperation unlocks a sealed, forbidden power, Skill Drain. In a final defiant act, he steals Kronos' own reality-warping ability, Rewind. The surge of power, fueled by panic and regret, doesn't just rewind a moment, but sends Ray himself through time. He awakens years in the past, armed with the stolen power of a god and a burning resolve. This time, he will master his own destiny. Ray is utterly shocked, and when he looks through the window, he realizes something more shocking. The inverted castle is still white, which was supposed to be pitch black. Apparently, the inverted castle was pure white until 7 years ago, but it gradually started becoming black, and when it turned completely dark, the door that unleashed Kronos opened. Suddenly, it dawns on him that he actually stole the rewind ability from Kronos to send himself back to the past. He picks up his phone to confirm the exact date, and he realizes that he has gone back 7 years. Curious, Ray opens his status window to see his skill list, and shockingly, the rewind skill is gone. But the ability Skill Drain still remains. Even though the rewind is gone, Ray is still happy with what he has left because, for 10 years, all he wanted was just a single skill, and since he has the Skill Drain, he feels fulfilled. Just then, the reminder on his phone comes on, reminding him that the very day is the Mage exam. Ray then heads to the Mage Association HQ that oversees the affairs of mages and dungeon conquests. He steps into the seemingly new headquarters, and before he can even get a breath of fresh air, he hears some dude call him colorless from behind. He turns around to see that the dudes are Goto and Oik, and they are both his brother's subordinates. They were also the ones who died in Kronos' room. Goto and Oik make fun of Ray for coming to the headquarters to take the mage exam yet again. They tell him that his efforts are basically pointless because no matter how many times he takes the test, he will always remain colorless. In truth, this is not the first time that Ray has taken the mage exam, but he kept taking the exam over and over again because he refused to give up. Not ready to play around with them, he slaps their hands away, telling them to leave him. Momentarily, he finds himself in the examiner's office, where he meets the examiner, Hinata Reiner, a B-rank mage. Even Hinata is tired of seeing Ray, and she tells him that he will eventually get himself killed if he continues trying. Ray assures Hinata that this time around would be different from the other times. Hinata has no choice but to accompany Ray to the exam venue, and since he has taken the exam loads of times, he needs no explanation. Apparently, he is to collect 3 mana stones from goblins to pass the exam. For those who have awakened a skill, this is usually no difficult task, but Ray has always been struggling with it. It turns out that a shocking event also happened that very day. A terrifying monster appeared in the level 1 dungeon, which is not supposed to be there. Just as Ray was expecting, the said monster showed up in the distance, looking all menacing. The monster turns out to be a red-cap goblin, which is a level 37 monster. Hinata is shocked when she sees this, leaving her to question why something so dangerous is present in the dungeon. Hinata whips out her sword, telling Ray to run so she can protect him. However, Ray knows that the level difference is just overwhelming. Before he regressed, Hinata lost against the monster because she was fighting to make sure that Ray could get to safety. Hinata got so beaten up that she was forced to retire as a mage. Ray blamed himself because Hinata's career as a mage was completely trashed because of his incompetence. However, this time around, Ray is prepared to switch things around. Ray pulls his short sword, and as the monster dashes toward him, he throws the short sword at it. Apparently, the monster has a skill that enhances its physical abilities, and just as Ray expected, the monster easily deflects the sword. The monster continues its advance toward Ray, and Ray punches it hard on the head. This pisses off the monster, and just as it is about to punish Ray for his stupidity, Ray's power steals the body enhancement skill from the monster, ultimately improving Ray's physical stats. The goblin stands in shock, wondering why it feels so powerless and useless. While it is still trying to piece things together, Ray easily cuts the monster in half from the head down. Hinata is stunned when she realizes that Ray just defeated a redcap with just a single strike. Ray, on the other hand, is amazed by his ability, the skill drain, because of how impressive it is. He is lost in happiness when Hinata jeers him back to reality, asking him how he was able to defeat the monster. Realizing that it might be bad for him to say he has black skills, Ray tells Hinata that it was nothing more than a coincidence. Hinata is screaming at Ray to stop lying when she realizes that the exam is supposed to be cancelled because an abnormal monster has just appeared in the dungeon. Hinata tells Ray that the event has to be reported to the headquarters. Ray is worried about himself, and he reminds Hinata that he still has 2 more mana stones to collect. but Hinata screams at him, telling him that he is in the wrong situation to be thinking about mana stones because it is dangerous. Just as fate would have it, two regular goblins appear in the distance, and Rei quickly takes them down by slicing their heads off. This further shocks Hinata, leaving her mouth open. Rei then picks up the mana stones that the goblins dropped, asking the lady if he is allowed to take them. Hinata is just too stunned to answer his question, and momentarily, they return to the headquarters. Not long after this, Hinata shows up with Rei's mage license. He has been officially given the mage status, and he is placed in C rank. Rei picks up the license and lets off a little smile because it took him just long enough to reach where he currently is. Hinata also shows him the details regarding the exchange of mana stones that he collected. Apparently, mana stones are a valuable energy source that doesn't emit CO2. In addition to being an energy source, it can be sold to the association. Rei believes that defeating the red cap monster, which is A rank, will give him decent pay. He checks out the payment details, and he almost screams out in shock because of the enormous amount there. For defeating the goblins, he is getting 1,000, but the red cap alone gives him 3 million. Hinata urges him not to lose his mind yet because he defeated a red cap. Rei is still surprised because he never knew that mages earn a lot of money, and Hinata tells him that he can even get more. This makes him curious, and he asks Hinata about the dungeons. After his discussion with Hinata, Rei heads to a C-rank dungeon that has been reserved for him. Rei is left in awe because, in the past, he could not enter a dungeon solo. However, with his new power, he is convinced that he can change the future. Just as he is about to step into the dungeon, he is suddenly grabbed by a skill known as Mana Hand. Rei turns around in frustration, and to his surprise, he is being held down by Goto and Oik. Oik and Goto make fun of him for trying to enter a dungeon solo, telling him that it is against the rules. With a scornful face, Rei tells the two that he is allowed because he has passed the mage examination. The two are surprised to hear this, and they assume that he is a chronic liar. Goto then walks up to Rei and pushes his head down with the Mana Hand, telling him to show his skills if he has truly awakened. Apparently, the Mana Hand is a skill that compresses mana itself into physical property. Even with the extreme body enhancement, Rei realizes that he can't actually break free. However, he is not one to give up under tough situations, and he angrily headbutts Goto. Goto stumbles backward, and at the same time, Rei steals his Mana Hand skill. Because he now possesses the Mana Hand, the one placed on him by Goto is ultimately disabled. An overwhelming blue aura emanates from his body, shocking Goto and Oik. Rei wastes no time putting the Mana Hand into use by grabbing Goto with it, forcing him to admit that Rei is truly an awakened. Oik refuses to give Rei his flowers and decides to attack him with a fireball. Rei activates the enhancement skill and uses it to cut down the fire attack, shocking Oik. He's trying to fathom what just happened when Rei reaches him with a blow that sends him across the room. Goto is shocked to see that Rei can also use body enhancement, and while writhing in pain, Oik asks Rei if he is now a dual-colored mage. Rei simply says no, and just then, his drain skill also steals Oik's fireball, basically adding one more color to his skill list. Oik's jaw almost drops when he sees this because he has never seen or heard of a mage with 3 colors. Rei shows him how dangerous he is by shooting a fireball at him, causing him to almost piss his pants. Rei then asks them if they are still willing to fight, but the two stare at each other in fear before running off with their tail between their legs. After they are gone, Rei figures out that Kai won't be happy if he later finds out about what just happened. Basically, he was Kai's lapdog, and if he learns that Rei has awakened a skill, he will definitely show up to crush him. Kai has already reached an impressive level 50, making him one of the strongest mages in the modern era. In addition to Kai, Rei figures out that he has to be worried about the scary dungeon that will open soon enough. To prepare himself for future problems, Rei knows that he has to raise his level as much as he can, and he steps into the dungeon. Apparently, level is the foundation of strength, and leveling up lets a mage learn new skills that increase one's total mana pool. This also increases the amount of mana that a mage can control at once. Rei is strolling in the dungeon when he is suddenly ambushed by a level 38 flame wizard. Surrounding the wizard are several fireballs, leaving Rei terrified because he can only manage to create one fireball. The wizard is able to do this thanks to the enormous difference in levels. The wizard hurls his fireballs at Rei, and even though he is able to block just one, Rei is forced to change positions to dodge the other fireballs. Rei figures out that he can't defeat the monster head-on, but there is one thing that doesn't change. This is the fact that after using a skill, there is always an opening, and Rei doesn't waste this opportunity as he dashes toward the wizard at great speed. Even though the opening is just 2 seconds, the wizard becomes totally powerless in that moment. Rei is able to punch the wizard so hard that he is sent flying while also stealing his fireball skill in the process. The wizard finds himself on his arse, and when he tries to unleash his attack, he realizes that he has become powerless. Rei then gives him a taste of his own medicine by hurling 5 fireballs at him, overwhelming him with a huge firepower that completely destroys him. Once the wizard is killed, Ray is hit with notifications, telling him that he has leveled up. He realizes that defeating higher-level monsters gives a ton of experience points. Even though it is quite difficult to take on higher-ranked monsters, Ray figures out that the skill drain ability gives him an edge. Ray checks his status window to see that he has climbed up to level 12. With this, Ray sets a standard of level 30 for himself. He starts cutting through the dungeon, annihilating monsters left and right. In no time, Ray reaches level 27, but he realizes that he is already slowing down because leveling up is getting tougher. Ray figures out that to reach level 30, he would have to defeat higher-level opponents. Ray then heads to the deepest part of the dungeon, where he finds the boss room. Ray is glad to have found this, since it is the perfect thing he needs. Ray flings the door open, and when he steps into the room, he finds 2 level 30 imps and a level 45 skull demon. Ray is cautious the moment he sees this, but he figures out that stealing their techniques will help him gain the edge. Ray dashes toward the skull demon, aiming to land a hit on it, but to his surprise, there is a mana barrier surrounding the monster, preventing him from activating his skill drain. The skull demon makes things harder by charging towards Ray, almost ripping his head off, but he manages to dodge it. With the sudden burst of energy from the monster, Ray figures out that he would have to do something pretty useful to defeat the monster. Since he doesn't have the power to drain the skull demon yet, he goes after the imps. He cuts down one of the imps, stealing the Ice Needle skill from it before turning it into barbecue with a fireball. The other imp watches his friend turn into fire decorations, but is too scared to make a move. Now in possession of the Ice Needle, Ray turns his attention to the skull demon and hits with the Ice Needle attack, ultimately crushing his mana barrier. However, the defeated imp is immediately resummoned thanks to the skull demon's power. Even though it is extra stress for Ray, he is not complaining because defeating the imps will give him experience points, and it is just what he needs. He takes down the imp again, granting him another level upgrade. Because of the recent level upgrade, the amount of mana he can control also increases. In addition, he unlocks a new ability, Skill Synthesis. Ray is relieved when he sees this because it is exactly what he wants. He wastes no time combining the Ice Needle with the Fireball using the newly acquired Skill Synthesis. The red and blue skills merge together, creating a fire lance that Ray shoots toward the skull demon. The skull demon puts up its mana barrier as usual, but the fire lance weakens it, giving Ray the chance to break through and reach him with his punch. By hitting the skull demon, he is able to steal the mana barrier from him, but he doesn't stop there. He also steals the extreme body enhancement, leaving the skull demon totally confused and powerless. Ray then ruthlessly finishes off the skull demon by pushing a fire lance into its chest to engulf it in fire. A large green mana stone drops from taking out the skull demon, and he also jumps from level 28 to level 33. Ray heaves a sigh of relief after defeating the tough monster thanks to the skill synthesis ability. Apparently, it is an advanced technique that is meant to create even more powerful skills, and it is available from around level 30. This was what Ray was hoping for, and he is glad that he could pull it off just in time. Ray is enjoying his winner's moment when the system informs him that he met the level requirement and the number of skills he can retain via the skill drain has increased. His skill slots have jumped from 3 to 5, and Ray smiles because he knows that things are just going to get easier for him. After he is done checking out everything he needs to, he steps out of the dungeon and heads to the headquarters to submit the green mana stone. Hinata is blown away when she realizes that Ray defeated a skull demon and has even reached level 33 in just a day. Ray smiles nervously, claiming that he only got lucky, but Hinata lets him know that it is unheard of to go past level 30 in just a single day. Hinata lets him know that with his current level, he can even become a B-rank mage. Just then, Ray hears a familiar voice echoing behind, and with it comes a terrifying aura. The voice is none other than his brother Kai, and Kai believes that there is a mistake because there is no way Ray is B-rank. Kai further adds that Ray is a colorless dude who has no talent whatsoever. Hinata defends Ray, saying he actually defeated a redcap and the skull demon. The moment Kai hears this, he loses it and immediately attacks Ray. He throws a powerful punch straight at his chest. Kai easily blocks it with the newly acquired mana guard while smiling at him and telling him to be careful. With Ray's ability to block his punch, Kai finally believes the rumor that his brother has awakened with skills. However, Kai is not all that impressed, and he urges Ray to watch his back because he would like to see just how capable he is. Hinata notices that Kai is acting all careless, forcing her to ask him if he is gearing up for a fight. Kai claims that there will be no issue if Ray is truly B-rank, like they claim he is, unless he is just a false mage who sneaked his way to B-rank. Ray figures out that rejecting Kai's demands will only set him up for future embarrassments and trouble. Ray then decides to accept Kai's challenge, and this shocks Kai, but at the same time, pisses him off. The two then head to the headquarters arena to settle their differences. Ray figures out that he has to be cautious about the amount of mana that he can control at once, since he is going up against an opponent stronger than him. Ray also knows that he has to stay on guard at all times since his max combo is 3 basic skills, while that of Kai is 5 skills. With these numbers alone, Ray is pretty sure that he is going to lose against him if he tries to fight him head-on. To make it fair, Ray figures out that he has to bring in something special. Once they are ready to fight, Ray attacks with the ice needles and Kai responds with fireballs. The two attacks clash in the middle, leaving a loud explosion and a cloud of dust. This blinds Kai's vision, and before he knows it, Ray reaches him with the body enhancement, shocking him. Kai is surprised to see that his brother is now a dual color wielder. On the other hand, Ray is trying to calculate the number of skill mana left for Kai to use, since he has used one already. As he moves closer to Kai, he activates the skill synthesis to create the fire lance. Kai is surprised to see this, but it basically lets him know that his brother can now use 3 color skills. However, he is not worried one bit about it. Just as Ray is about to reach him, Kai welcomes him with a powerful fireball that destroys Ray's fire lance before sending him to the ground. Ray's face lights up in horror because his fire lance, which took 2 skills worth of mana to use, was easily taken out with just a simple skill. Kai mocks his brother, telling him that he might be able to use 3 skill colors, but he can't compare to him because he is on a totally different level. To properly put Ray in his place, Kai shoots deadly fireballs at him. Ray is forced to run around to try and dodge the fireballs while also creating a fire lance. He shoots the fire lance at Kai, but Kai responds with his usual, the fireball. Kai's fireball breaks through and heads straight for Ray, but he immediately puts up a mana barrier. However, the mana barrier cannot compare to Kai's power, and it shatters, sending Ray to the ground yet again. With Ray on the ground, Kai walks toward him, telling him to bow his head in respect, and he would forget about everything that has happened so far. He wants Ray to admit that he is trash compared to him. Deep down, Ray knows that he can't win against Kai with his little moves and output, but he is not willing to give up because he would continue living like a slave. Determined to make his own name, he gets on his feet, screaming at Kai to tell him that he will never bow to him. Kai is pissed when he sees this, and he tells Ray that he might just have to kill him. Kai immediately activates the overlock skill, which consumes a large amount of mana but doubles the amount of mana that can be controlled at once. With the overlock in place, Kai is able to conjure several fireballs, and he confidently tells Ray that he is about to witness the power of a king, a 10-combo attack. Ray is gripped with fear when he sees this because he recognizes the power, since it is Kai's ultimate move. Basically, he is one person who can use a considerable amount of mana when compared to those on his level. However, this is something Ray has been betting on and has been expecting Kai to use. Ray leaps toward Kai, and Kai makes fun of him, asking him if he thinks he can dodge his attack mid-air. Ray finds himself contending against a bunch of fireballs, but he activates the mana hand, shocking Kai because he wasn't expecting another skill. Ray knows that no matter how powerful Kai is, he is bound by a cooldown. He manages to dodge the fireballs, and he reaches Kai just in time. Kai is on his cooldown period when Ray reaches him, and he punches him in the face. Ray's punch is so heavy that it sends Kai across the arena, and by punching him, Ray also manages to steal his overlock skill. Ray is pleased with the outcome since he was able to steal the overlock skill too. Ray believes that he has won the fight, but Kai gets back on his feet with a disfigured face, threatening to kill Ray. Just then, Kai pulls out the Demon Lance skill, shocking Ray, since he wasn't expecting Kai to have learned the skill yet. Apparently, it is Kai's greatest skill, which makes it completely dangerous. Ray watches as the lance comes straight at him, but before it can hit, Ray manages to get out of the way. Ray is forced to admit that the speed of the lance is something else. Ray finally realizes that he was only able to land a hit on Kai because he was being careless, but things have changed now that Kai has gotten really serious. Ray finds himself running around the arena because the strength level between him and Kai has skyrocketed. Even with the destruction he has caused to the arena, Kai is nowhere near done. Ray tries to fight back with his fire lance, but Kai overpowers his skill with the demon lance. The wave from the explosion sends Ray straight into the wall, and he screams as he hits the wall. Kai makes fun of him, saying this is exactly why he is called the Purple King. Ray has no choice but to admit that Kai is actually right because his demon lance is one of the strongest. Kai stands above Ray yet again, telling him not to get cocky just because he can use several skills. Ray admits that he is no match for Kai in his current state, but it suddenly dawns on him that the game is going to change if he can find the potential of the purple skill. Before the fight, the limit to his synthesis is 2 colors, but Ray totally changes the game up by activating the overlock skill. Kai is shocked when he sees his brother tap into the overlock skill as if it is nothing. Because of the overlock, his mana capacity automatically increases, and he unlocks the skill synthesis. Ray smiles when he figures out that he has hit the jackpot, but Kai is worried because he doesn't know what sinister plan that he is cooking up. Just then, Ray does something that no one has ever done before, and this is combining 3 colors together. Ray adds the red skill to the blue skill and tops it all up with the yellow skill, ultimately turning it into black mana, leaving Kai's mouth agape. Basically, the mana colors available are red, yellow, and blue. Ray has always been told that he doesn't have an affinity for these 3 colors, but unknown to them, they are all wrong. Ray is a totally different and rare breed because he is a dark mage unheard of in the history of mages. With the combination of the 3 colors, Ray creates the abyss flame that looks really deadly. Fear grips Kai, and he frantically launches a demon lance at Ray, screaming at him to stay away. Ray spots the lance and throws the abyss fireball at it, crushing it in an instant. Once the demon lance is out of the way, Ray runs toward Kai as he prepares another ball of fire. Kai is unwilling to give up, and he summons another giant demon lance in preparation for Kai's attack. Kai launches his demon lance, and Ray meets it halfway with the fireball. Ray's fireball overwhelms and consumes the demon lance, leaving a big explosion that knocks Kai out. Ray cannot believe his eyes as he falls to the ground in amazement that he has finally defeated Kai. The system notification pops on, telling him that he has acquired the Abyss Flame, all thanks to the skill synthesis. Moments later, Hinata walks up to Ray in complete shock, asking him what type of skill he just used. Ray is already worried about this because he knows that he can't keep hiding his skill and strength forever. Ray acts like a cool dude and showcases his skill, saying it appears to be a black skill. It sends a wave of shock through Hinata's body, since Ray is the first black skill user. Ray then asks her if he is obligated to report the nature of his skill to the association because he would like to keep it a secret between them. Hinata is surprised to hear this, and she tells Ray that he is missing an opportunity. Ray wonders what opportunity he might be missing, and Hinata reminds him that the strongest mage in each color is always given the title of a king, which basically means he is the Black King, since there is no one else. Ray gives it a deep thought, and even though the offer is tempting, he tells Hinata that he doesn't want it at the time. Ray knows he is still weak, which doesn't fit a king. Just then, he remembers that his brother is still passed out in the arena, and he asks Hinata if he will be okay. Hinata lets him know that Kai is one of the kings, and he is sure to recover soon, even though he is critically injured. Nonetheless, Hinata plans to take him to the medical room. Suddenly, they get an emergency notification on the phone, and when he checks it, he realizes that a dungeon has appeared in the western entrance of Ikebukuro Park, and the recommended mage level to enter is 70. Hinata is shocked when she sees this, but Ray was already expecting it because he knew it had happened in his past life. It is a level 70 dungeon when most of the kings are still in level 50. And in the first week of the dungeon's appearance, the kings realized just how weak they were. Because of this, they abandoned the Ikebukuro dungeon, but unknown to them, it is the starting point of a tragedy. Apparently, the dungeon suffered a dungeon collapse because a dungeon is expected to be conquered within a time frame, or else the monsters will come rushing out. Ikebukuro dungeon was the first of the dungeons where the dungeon outbreak happened. The appearance of the monsters resulted in so many deaths, leaving the city of Tokyo overwhelmed with monsters. In return, a lot of people died because of the terrifying number of monsters that raided the streets. However, Ray is prepared to stop the tragedy from happening all over again, no matter what it takes. Hinata almost loses her balance when Ray tells her his plan to conquer the dungeon. Hinata tries telling him how dangerous the dungeon is, even if he is quite strong. In addition to this, only A-rank mages are allowed to enter the dungeon because the recommendation level is way above 50. Since there is a bit of time before the dungeon outbreak, Ray confirms if the A-rank promotion exam is still next week, and Hinata says yes. Since this is the case, Ray tells Hinata his plan to rise to A-rank by the time he takes the next examination. Hinata is further surprised when she hears this, but she can't deny the fact that Ray can actually pass the exam with his skills. However, she sounds like there is a problem, and Ray asks her what it is. Hinata then tells him that to take an A-rank promotion test, he has to clear a B-rank dungeon with a party first. This basically means he has to form a party in one and clear a B-rank dungeon, and Ray has completely forgotten this. Ray checks his phone and all he sees are trash messages about people telling him that there is no way they will form a party with him. Since he has to clear a B-rank dungeon before the week runs out, Ray knows he is in a difficult position because it is hard to clear solo. Ray is left racking his brain, thinking of what he can do to get out of his sticky situation. Just then, he hears some mages scolding their colleague for being so weak. This gets to Ray, who remembers that he was always treated like trash, just like the outcast. Apparently, the girl's name is Ichinose Aya, and her colleagues are not even holding back and calling her a dead weight. The moment Ray hears Aya's name, he remembers something quite important. It turns out that Aya would be known as the Scarlet King in the future, but she is still known as an incompetent mage in the current time. Even though she is weak, Ray is disappointed that her party members are treating her like trash. Aya tried telling her team members that she can't afford to be kicked out of the party because she won't be able to foot her sister's medical bills. She promises to do better the next time they enter a dungeon, and the party leader tells her that she will be waiting to see what she can do during their raid for that very day. She lets Aya know that she's definitely off the team if she messes up, and Aya nervously agrees to this. Aya and her team then step out to take on a dungeon, but Rei is worried that things might not go well. Rei knows that Aya became the Scarlet King in the years to come, but she suffered loads of hardships before then. Rei remembers that it was around this time that she was involved in a certain incident. Apparently, she was critically injured during a boss battle, and she went into a coma for years. Suddenly, it dawns on Rei that the incident might be that very day. Even though Rei is not sure about it, he could see that Aya was acting really weird. To prevent something crazy from happening to her, Rei decides that he needs to step in. Meanwhile, Aya and her team have encountered the dungeon boss, Dullahan, a level 45 monster. Suddenly, the party leader does something extremely crazy, and she pushes Aya into the monster's range so she can use her as bait. She tells Aya to fight the monster all by herself, and Aya tries reminding her that she can't win against the monster alone. The party leader then tells Aya that she will be kicked out if she can't take on the boss monster by herself. Aya is pushed into a corner by the party leader's demand, but she believes that she has no choice, since everything she is doing is for her sister's sake. The party watches in amusement as Aya walks toward the boss and hurls a fireball at it. Aya's fireball hits the target, but the monster doesn't move an inch from where it is. Aya freaks out when she realizes that her strike was useless against the monster. Suddenly, the Dullahan leaps toward her, ready to smash her to death with its big sword. The sword hits right in front of her, causing a big wave that shatters the ground and sends her crashing to the ground, totally at the monster's mercy. The monster is about to finish her off when Rei appears on the scene, and with the help of his extreme body enhancement, he blocks the monster's attack. Aya is shocked when she sees a savior appear right in front of her, preventing her from dying. Rei puts all of his strength into repelling the attack, and he pushes the monster backward. Aya is left in awe, and Rei turns around to make sure that she is fine. Aya's party members are not happy that someone out of nowhere showed up to ruin their plan. They know that Dullahan is a scary monster with terrifying weight, but Rei pushed it away like it was nothing. Just then, Dullahan gets back on its feet and lets off a loud roar that hits every corner of the room. Rei is not surprised that the monster is still alive because the Dullahan's armor is obviously enhanced with a strengthening skill which makes regular attacks completely useless against it. Since this is the case, Rei decides to steal the skill and nullify it. Rei risks everything and leaps toward the monster to try and touch it. He manages to touch the monster and he activates the skill drain, but to his surprise, the skill refuses to come on. Rei is forced to jump backwards before he is sliced in half by the monster. Rei returns to where Aya is, and she asks him if he is fine. Rei lets her know that he is good because he managed to block the monster's attack with his sword. Rei finally figures out that Dullahan's armor is its external part, and to get the skill drain to work, he has to touch the internal part of its body. Just then, Dullahan smashes its sword on the ground, releasing a massive energy blast from it. Rei raises his mana barrier and screams at Aya to stay behind him so she doesn't get hit. Rei's mana barrier successfully blocks the incoming attack, but the wave from the attack sends the party members flying around like papers. Only the party leader remains standing, and she angrily launches an ice lance at the monster. Surprisingly, Dullahan blocks the attack and retaliates with a counterattack that the lady couldn't dodge. She finds herself getting thrown into a wall. Since the ice lance was useless against Dullahan, Rei figures out that he needs a skill that is beyond the monster's strengthening skill. Rei resorts to using his Abyss Flame, and he wastes no time cooking up a black fireball, shocking Aya. Rei hurls the black flame directly at the monster, and Dullahan also sends its energy wave in Rei's way. The two attacks meet halfway, but Rei's flame is just too powerful, and it overwhelms Dullahan's energy blast. The black flame reaches Dullahan before it even gets the chance to do anything, and it is engulfed in fire. Rei restricts the monster's movements with the mana hand to make sure that the black flame does its job. This is enough to burn through whatever armor-strengthening skill that Dullahan has, and it crumbles to dust from the overwhelming power of the black flame. With the Dullahan dead, it drops a large green mana stone, but Aya is more concerned about the amazing power that Rei possesses. She is completely impressed with how he was able to take down the monster with just one hit, and she nervously thanks Rei for saving her life. Rei smiles while telling the girl that he is just glad that she is fine. Deep down, Rei is really happy that he managed to save Aya from dying. Aya's annoying party leader finally gets back on her feet looking completely pissed. She figures out that Rei is quite strong, but her greediness makes her crave the reward for taking down the monster. She walks up to Rei, telling him to hand over the Mana Stone because they were the ones who applied to conquer the dungeon. Aya is shocked to hear this, and she is forced to remind the annoying lady that Rei just saved their lives. Rei even tells the lady that he has no problem giving her the Mana Stone, But in exchange for this, Ray tells the lady that he wants Aya to be in his party. This shocks the party leader and even Aya herself. Ray then turns to Aya, saying she is also free to make her choice, as he is not imposing on her. The party leader bursts into maniacal laughter when she hears this and tells Ray that she wholeheartedly agrees with the deal. She taps Aya on the shoulder, asking her if she is also fine with the deal. Aya subtly replies that she is in on the deal, and she tells Ray that she is now in his care. The party leader collects the Mana Stone, and as she walks away, she talks about how she has managed to strike a good deal by exchanging a useless party member. Unknown to her but known to Ray, Aya is the real deal. After the party is gone, Aya thanks Ray once again for saving her, and Ray apologizes for making her leave her party all of a sudden. Aya, on the other hand, doesn't think too much about herself because she believes that she is just going to drag Ray down. Ray then tells her that she has nothing to worry about because she is going to get stronger, and even stronger than those who abandoned her. Aya is shocked to hear this because she doesn't see herself as someone who is going to get stronger. Ray then tells her that he heard her conversation with her former party members at the headquarters, but he assures her that it was not intentional. Because of what he heard, Ray tells Aya that he can be her support. Aya is relieved to hear this, and she tells Ray that she is willing to be in his care. Ray smiles, realizing that he has successfully bagged gold. The following day, Ray and Aya prepare to step out in an attempt to conquer a B-rank dungeon. Aya asks if they are liable to take the A-rank exam if they conquer the dungeon, and Ray says yes. In addition to this, Ray lets her know that there is actually something that will make her stronger inside the dungeon. This gets Aya curious, because she knows that getting stronger will help her earn more money to pay her sister's medical bills. Excited at this, Aya shows Ray how hyped she is to take on the dungeon. The two steps into the B-rank dungeon, which is a crystal cave. The first set of monsters that they come across are black wolves, and this scares Aya. However, Ray urges her to stay back while he takes care of the monsters. Ray runs toward the monsters and he activates the extreme body enhancement before reaching them. Armed with his sword, he cuts down the monsters like tissue. He slices them open one after the other, shocking Aya, who is watching from behind. She is in awe at just how strong Ray is because his strength can't be compared to that of her former party members, even though they were strong. Ray then leads Aya to exactly where he wants them to go, assuring her that he is going to support her. He urges her to follow the plan, and Aya walks toward the monsters in an attempt to defeat them so she can level up pretty fast. Even though she can only use simple attacks, she is willing to try her best against the monsters. Aya conjures her fireballs in preparation for the little monsters running up to her. Meanwhile, Ray is standing and watching from behind because he has set Aya up for the perfect test to make her realize her own weapon. While Aya is dealing with the tiny monsters, a huge one appears from behind. But Ray is ready to deal with it because he is not in the mood to allow anything to tamper with what Aya has going on. Aya manages to defeat the monsters, but no matter how much she does, they just keep coming as if they have infinite respawn cards. She even gets bitten on her left arm to make things worse for her, because she is going to run out of mana if she finds a way around the annoying monsters. Aya is thinking about how hard her life is when she looks up to see Ray taking on a bunch of tougher monsters just so he can make things easier for her. This is when it finally dawns on her that she needs to stop complaining and start acting instead. Aya is ready to live up to the standards that Ray is setting for her, and she uses her emotions to conjure a fireball. She hurls the fireball at the monsters, and thanks to the emotions behind it, the fireball grows large enough to consume the monsters like chips. Aya is shocked when she realizes that her fireball is getting bigger, but her mana is not running out. Ray, on the other hand, is glad that Aya is finally getting a hold of her powers because she is actually suited for the battle of endurance. Basically, her mana pool is her greatest weapon, and she has just discovered it. Aya is left in awe when she realizes that she has unlocked a skill, Blast Furnace. Momentarily, the two arrive at the boss's room, which houses a level 52 huge slime. As Ray charges toward the slime, he tells Aya to use her new skill against the slime. Aya acknowledges the order, and she lets go of her Blast Furnace, releasing an overwhelming firepower that shocks her. She cannot believe that she is capable of such terrifying power. On the other hand, Ray is aware of what she is capable of because the Blast Furnace is a skill that increases the firepower of her skill, but at a high mana cost. It basically goes with her skill set. But suddenly, it dawns on Ray that the level of firepower that he is witnessing is higher than what he thought. Aya's firepower engulfs the entire room, turning it red, and she ultimately wipes out the slime. After the boss is defeated, Ray works up to her, commending her for a job well done. Aya is initially shaken, but she pulls herself together and starts laughing because she never thought she was capable of such amazing power. However, she doesn't waste a second to appreciate Ray because it is all thanks to him that she discovered her potential. After conquering the B-rank dungeon, the two return to the surface. and she mentions that they have managed to fulfill the condition that allows them to participate in the A rank exam, meaning what is left is to take the exam. Ray smiles at her, confirming this, but deep down, he is edging to take the exam and pass because it is a must. On the day of the A rank examination, the two head to the association, and Hinata tells them that they are going to have to measure their combat capabilities and pair them with someone for a mock battle. Ray is ready to take on the exam and pass, so he can finally become an A rank mage for his next plan. Aya is also excited, and she urges Ray to put in his best too. Just then, they run into former party members and the annoying leader, Isoyama. They make fun of her for trying to take the exam, but Ray steps up to defend Aya, telling the party members that Aya is not going to lose to cowards like them. Isoyama scoffs and then mocks Ray, telling him that she has better party members that he can get instead of the useless Aya. Just then, the said party member appears in the distance, and it turns out to be a lady, Aono Yuri. This immediately gets Ray worried because he has heard the name in his past life. Apparently, Yuri was so powerful that she once soloed a very dangerous dungeon without much stress. It was after this that she became really famous, and judging by the present circumstances, Ray easily figures out that Yuri is probably around an A-rank mage already. Yuri then walks up to Ray saying that he looks like someone who is quite interesting. This catches Ray off guard, leaving him to stare at Yuri weirdly. Aya is worried about how Ray is acting, and she calls his name. The mention of his name immediately tells Yuri who he is, as she is able to figure out that he is Kai's elder brother. In addition, she has learned that Kai lost to him, and the news of this shocks Ray because he didn't know his feats had gone far amongst the mages. Aya, on the other hand, is totally shocked that Ray defeated Kai, and she is forced to ask him if it is true. Yuri then turns around to tell Ray that he might be impressive, but he has no chance against her. Yuri mentions that the Purple King, Kai, is weaker than her. Momentarily, the mages gather at the training center to try out their combat skills against the artificial golem provided by the association. Apparently, the golem is covered with a special rock that is harder than a normal rock, and the mages are urged to do their best against it. Ray is the first person to be called forward to try out his strength against the golem. He stands in front of the golem and conjures a fireball, but the mages present start laughing at him for trying to use a fire element against a metal element golem. As he dashes toward the golem, Ray is pretty sure that the fire element will be totally useless against the golem, but just before he reaches the golem, he combines the fire attack with the ice shard to create the fire lance. Ray shoots the fire lance at the golem and it shatters the golem's head, leaving a cloud of smoke in its wake. The supervisor checks out the golem, and the moment he gets no response, he confirms that the golem has been defeated. The mages who were mocking Ray before started murmuring in awe because they never expected Ray to take down the golem with just a single hit. Yuri, on the other hand, is impressed with the way Ray infused the two elements together to create an even powerful element. Ray smiles because he is obviously proud of how he handled the entire situation. For Aya, she undergoes the mana pool measurement test, and she is required to hold a crystal ball with her hands to get the accurate measurement. Just as she is about to touch the crystal ball, her former party members are already mocking her, saying she should be ashamed that she came to take the exam. However, everyone in the room is left reeling in their pants when the device displays her overwhelming firepower. Isoyama cannot believe this, and she assumes that Aya is most definitely cheating. Once they are done with the other prerequisites, the examiner tells the mages that the mock battles are the last thing on the list. For the first match of the mock battle, Aya is pitted against her nemesis, Isoyama. Aya stays calm as she is about to take on the lady, but Isoyama can't wait to fight Aya so she can expose her for who she really is. The battle begins, and Isoyama launches a bunch of ice needles at Aya, but she easily shatters everything with a giant fireball that blows shards of ice everywhere, almost blinding the caster herself. Isoyama is shocked when she sees this because she never expected Aya to have such an overwhelming firepower skill. Isoyama is startled, but Aya has not even started. Aya creates another fireball, and she hurls it at Isoyama. Isoyama senses the terrifying power behind the fireball and immediately puts up a mana barrier, hoping that this would save her. Before the attack hits, she is already mocking Aya for being a fool because her attack plan is quite simple. She plans to block Aya's attack before launching a counterattack to get her off. Suddenly she realizes something crazy, and this is the fact that Aya's attack is not stopping anytime soon. Aya continues launching a series of fireballs at Isoyama and her mana barrier, and because of the consecutive attacks, the mana barrier breaks apart, exposing Isoyama's fear behind it. Isoyama turns to her usual cowardice move, but as she runs away, she is hit by one of the resulting rubbles from Aya's fireball attack. Isoyama gets hit in the back of her head, and as she crashes to the ground, every fiber of her existence refuses to believe that Aya has surpassed her in strength. She crashes to the ground, and the examiner stops the battle, declaring Aya the winner. Aya's face lights up in excitement, and as she returns to the stands, Ray commends her for a job well done. Aya smiles, saying she can't believe that she won, but she wishes Ray good luck in his battle against Yuri. Yuri remains calm as she tells Ray to step into the arena for their battle. As they step into the ring, Yuri asks Ray if there is any particular reason as to why he is taking the examination. Ray stays mute, and Yuri says she can see that he is more prepared compared to the other participants. Ray then replies that he has something that he needs to do no matter what, which is why he can't allow Yuri to stop him. Yuri smiles when she hears this, and she lets off an overwhelming aura, reminding Ray that she is pretty strong. Ray assures her that he is aware of this, but he is confident that he is going to win. Yuri is impressed by his confidence, and to put the talks to a side, she suggests that they do battle instead. Yuri starts with the attacks first, and she launches a series of mana blades at Ray. Ray whips out his sword to try and block the blades, but he struggles. Apparently, Yuri uses a skill called mana conversion that allows the user to manipulate their mana freely. Just then, Yuri surprises Ray with a powerful and overwhelming attack that almost crushes him, but he manages to get out of the way in time. Yuri smiles evilly, saying Ray is lucky to have dodged the attack, but Yuri is tired of staying on the defensive, and he decides to go on the offense instead. He runs toward her, but Yuri is not going to allow him to get to her just easily. She hurls some long-range attacks at him, but he blocks them, using his mana barrier. Ray then dashes toward her, and he swings his sword really hard in an attempt to decapitate her, but she jumps backwards. While she is still in the air, Ray tries to finish her off with his fire lance, but Yuri uses the mana conversion skill to create a shield to protect herself. Her shield is able to hold off against Ray's powerful lance attack, but she admits that he tried his best. Ray, on the other hand, is worried because her defense appears to be totally flawless. Without a doubt, Ray can see that she is absolutely strong. Yuri then makes the next move by launching several long-range beams at Ray, forcing him to run around the arena in an attempt to dodge. Ray admits that Yuri's attacks are troublesome, and Yuri, on the other hand, mocks him, saying he has no chance if he thinks he can run around to win. Ray then turns toward her, and she locks on him with her attacks, believing that it is over for him. However, Ray has something else planned. Just as the attacks are about to hit him, he activates his physical enhancement and cuts down everything that Yuri throws at him, shocking her. However, she is not done with Ray just yet. Yuri admits that it is her first time seeing someone who can wield 3 colors. However, she shocks him, saying she can also use body enhancement too. She activates the skill and then conjures a scythe, using her primary skill. Suddenly, she vanishes right in front of Ray, and by the time she reappears, she is behind him. Ray almost loses his head but manages to turn just in time to block the attack. Ray is thrown backward from the overwhelming attack, and with just how fast Yuri is. Ray soon finds himself on the defensive again as Yuri hunts him down. Ray cannot believe the amount of overwhelming power that the girl possesses, and because of this, he decides to go to extremes. He allows Yuri to get close, and he grabs her hand. But Yuri mocks him for this, believing that there is nothing to make of it. Suddenly, she realizes that something is wrong with her, and before she knows it, Ray has stolen her body enhancement skill. She starts stumbling backwards with the realization that her power is leaving her. With no way to defend herself, Ray gets the perfect opening to land a perfect hit straight into her chest. Yuri coughs up in pain as she falls to the ground. She cannot believe that Ray was actually hiding his true power all the while. With Yuri on the ground and unable to fight back, Ray is declared the winner of the duel. Later on, Yuri wakes up in the hospital to see Ray and Aya standing beside her. The two are happy to see her back to life, and she admits that she totally lost the fight. She tells Ray that she wasn't expecting him to be strong the way he is. Yuri then asks him why he has come to visit her. With a humble voice and stance, Ray bows his head, asking Yuri if she would mind joining his party. Yuri is shocked when she hears this, and Ray lets her know that, after reassessing the battle, she also got promoted to A rank. Ray admits that they need Yuri if they are to have a chance at conquering difficult dungeons. Ray is still talking when Yuri cuts him off by laughing out loud, saying he is a really interesting fellow. Yuri doesn't drag things further, and she tells Ray that she doesn't mind following his lead. Ray is glad to hear this, and the two shake hands to seal the deal. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking ferociously, leaving Ray totally worried. He wonders what could be happening, and unknown to him, Kronos is actually trying to break off from where he is imprisoned, and all he needs is just a bit more strength to pull it off. When the shaking stopped, Ray remembered that in his past life, a lot of earthquakes similar to this had happened before the Ikebukuro dungeon later collapsed. Ray figures out that they are reaching the time limit for the dungeon break already. Even though the dungeon is pretty difficult to take on, Ray doesn't think they have a choice at this point in time. Just then, he tells the two girls his plan to conquer the dungeon, and this scares the crap out of them. They remind him that the dungeon is the most difficult in the region, which makes it even more dangerous for the three of them. Yuri then asks him if he is suggesting that they conquer the dungeon because of the earthquake that happened, and Ray confesses that he has a bad feeling about it. Ray says that there are several reports concerning abnormal monsters, and he wants to believe that it is a prerequisite to something more dangerous. Yuri doesn't really care about whatever Rei says as long as she follows his lead. Realizing that Yuri is on board, Aya also assures Rei of her support. Rei is glad to hear this, and he thanks them for the support. The next day, Rei and his party submit a request to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon to Hinata. Their request is approved, and the trio heads to the dungeon entrance. Being the insane person she is, Yuri is super excited to take on the dungeon. Aya mentions that it would have been better if they had enough numbers to help with, but Rei says this is impossible since the association is limited to the number of A-rank mages that they can deploy. He then says it would have been nice if a certain person called Oikawa were with them. Before the regression, Oikawa was known to be one of the best in Japan. Rei fears that Kronos will appear again if the dungeon break happens, and he is determined to make sure that it doesn't. Before entering, the girls urge Rei to get formalities out of the way and call them by their regular names. To waste no further time, he agrees to this. And the trio steps into the dungeon afterward. Upon entering, the first monster they come across is a level 71 skull demon. Rei is shocked to see this, since the monster is a boss in other low-level dungeons, but it is already showing up at the entrance of the dungeon. Without fear, the trio charges toward the skull demon, and it immediately puts up a mana barrier. Rei figures out that getting the mana barrier out of the way is the first thing to do, and he shoots a fire lance at the barrier. However, a single hit from the fire lance appears to be too weak to destroy the barrier. Aya and Yuri then unleash their combined efforts to take down the barrier, giving Rei the open chance to run toward it and slice it in half. As usual, defeating the skull demon provides them with a big green mana stone. Rei commends the ladies for their impeccable timing in taking down the barrier. Yuri then finally summons the courage to ask Rei how it is that he is able to use so many skills. Rei takes a minute, but he finally answers, revealing that he has an ability called Skill Drain. The girls are confused by this, and Rei explains that just by touching, he is able to steal someone else's skill. It finally dawns on Yuri what happened during their duel. However, Rei assures Yuri that he has already returned her skill. Aya, on the other hand, is totally blown away because she wasn't expecting Rei to have such an overpowered skill. She finally realizes why Rei wanted them to take on the dungeon, and she concludes that they are in safe hands as long as Rei is with them. Aya is also determined to make sure that she is not a burden to the team. With this, the team continues their advance deeper into the dungeon, and shortly afterward, they arrive at the boss's room. Aya points out that the rumbling of the ground is getting more intense. She is forced to ask if they really have what it takes to take on the boss monster. Rei then tells Aya that they have undergone a level increase on their way to the boss's room, and with this, he believes that they should be able to pull it off. Aya admits that the dude is right with his analysis, and she is ready to prove herself to the team that she is not a drawback. Suddenly, something appears behind and grabs Aya before any of them can react. They turn around to see a terrifying creature, a level 89 Grim Reaper, which is the boss of the dungeon. Rei is ultimately shocked and terrified since the boss shouldn't be out of its room. This leaves several questions running through his head, but the main focus of everything is that they are in a deep mess. Rei then tells Yuri that things might look bad, but they have no choice but to save Aya. Rei screams at Aya to make sure that she is fine. Apparently, Aya was able to cast a mana barrier to prevent herself from getting crushed, but at the same time, Rei is worried because Aya might have a large pool of mana, but there is still a limit to it. Even though the best option for him is to use his Abyss Flame, he can't, since Aya will be caught in the crossfire. The only solution to the problem is to actually find a way to help her out of the situation. Rei then tells Yuri that he is going to try his best to get the tentacle's attention, and he urges her to find a way to save Aya. With a seemingly solid plan, the two charge toward the monster. Rei puts himself directly where the monster is facing and almost gets hit with a tentacle, but he narrowly dodges it. The damage from the tentacle shatters the floor, shocking Rei. He immediately figures out that he is done for if he suffers a direct hit. Just when he thinks he is out of danger, one of the tentacles appears from behind. Aya believes that the dude is done for as she screams out his name in pain. Fortunately for Rei, he was able to get himself out of the tight situation using Mana Hand, and he heaved a sigh of relief. While the entire chaos is unfolding, Yuri has gotten the chance to reach the monster. She swings her scythe, hoping to land a critical hit, but her attack bounces off, and this is when they realize that the monster has a strengthening skill. Yuri is forced to retreat before she gets crushed between the monster's large tentacles. Rei checks on her, and she assures the dude that she is doing quite fine. However, the two could see that there was something strange about the whole thing. Basically, tentacle monsters always have low defense, and this is the first time that Rei will be seeing one with a strengthening skill. In addition to the list of weird things going on around the monster, is that it is outside its room. Unknown to him, Kronos is playing a big role in everything that is unfolding right in front of him. However, the monster is coming at them with so much rage that they don't have the time to start thinking of what to do. While she is stuck inside her protective barrier, Aya believes that what the other two are facing is basically her fault. She figures out that she has been too passive because she is always relying on Rei to fix things. She starts racking her brain to think of something that he can actually do to help out in the situation. Yuri and Rei soon have a huge problem on their hands because they are almost out of mana, thanks to the number of battles that they have been involved in. Rei is about to give up on this situation when he suddenly remembers something. He screams at Aya, telling her to hit them with her mana fusion. Aya is shocked to hear this, and the same goes for Yuri, who thinks the skill is useless, since it consumes a lot of mana. Rei understands why they think this because the skill was considered useless in his past life too, but thanks to a certain mage, the skill's value was later discovered. This said mage is none other than Aya herself, as she was the one who figured it out before the regression. Aya is also conflicted about the skill since he hasn't used it before, but since Rei is asking her to do it, she is willing. Just then, Aya lets loose of her skill, and it hits the two just as planned. Surprisingly, Yuri realizes that her mana is starting to recover, but Rei just smiles because he knows the essence of the skill. Apparently, mana fusion has an effect that shares the mana of the user, but it is a skill that only a mage with a large amount of mana can master. Aya is excited when she sees this, but suddenly she realizes that the amount of mana that she is sharing is not enough. It then dawns on her that her mana sharing is restricted because of the mana barrier she activated. To properly help the team, she releases her mana barrier, giving the monster the chance to grab her tightly. However, Aya is able to release all of her for the two to operate with. Once she is done doing this, she weakly tells the two that the rest is up to them. With the sacrifice of their teammate, the two get hyper-determined to take down the monster no matter what. The two charge toward the monster, ready to tear it apart to save Yuri. Since their mana has been restored, they have what it takes to cut through the monster's defenses using their enhancement skill. They start decimating the monsters left and right, and Rei urges Yuri to maintain the momentum so that they can save Aya. Rei gets the chance to get to Aya, but the monster is a step ahead of them. The monster immediately moves Aya's position, making things even harder for them. Rei easily figures out that with the way things are going, they won't be able to get to Aya. However, Yuri assures him that she is going to open a path for him. Yuri then taps into her primary skill to unleash so much aura, creating stairs for Rei to climb on so he can reach Aya. Rei is thankful for the assist and he dashes toward Aya with the stairs. The monster tries to block his path with some of its tentacles, but Rei easily cuts them down with sheer fury. With so much speed and determination, he reaches Aya and he cuts her down from the monster's grasp. Rei manages to reach the ground, and he checks on Aya to make sure that she is fine. Aya opens her eyes and smiles, saying Rei is just as impressive as ever. Yuri then rushes over, telling Aya that she actually saved them with her skill. Yuri admits that Aya has some nerves about her. Even though they have rescued Aya, the primary mission to take down the monster remains. Rei and Yuri rush toward the monster, but things get even harder because it regenerates its tentacles. Yuri realizes that they have found themselves in a tough situation, and she asks Rei what their next move should be. Rei then tells Yuri to leave the rest to him, and even though she is skeptical, she agrees to let him do what he wants. Rei dashes toward the monster, assuring Yuri that he is going to finish it off. Yuri is shocked when she realizes that Rei is running toward the monster without a weapon in hand. Just as Rei is about to reach the monster's main body, it regenerates one of its tentacles to block his path. Rei then taps into the overclock power, hoping to double his firepower before using the Abyss Flame. His entire body is engulfed in a dark aura as he unleashes a powerful flame at the monster, ultimately tearing its head open. The monster crashes to the ground, and this shocks Kronos, who wasn't expecting the Grim Reaper to be defeated. Nonetheless, he is determined to make sure that Rei and his friends don't make it out alive. The team is still celebrating their win when a dark fluid emerges from the monster's defeated body and heads straight at Aya. It almost impales her, but Rei is able to get her out of the way just in time. Rei realizes that the fluid is getting more powerful, and he screams at the girls to make a run for it. As they run toward the exit, Rei is hoping that they don't die, since they have managed to stop the dungeon from collapsing. Just as they are about to reach the exit, the fluid gets the edge over them. The trio is about to be swallowed up when a golden shield covers them, and a stern voice tells them to step aside. The team turns around to check out their savior, who is none other than the powerful Oikawa Hikaru. The girls are shocked when Oikawa introduces himself because Rei had mentioned his name before they entered the dungeon. Rei admits that he is the same guy whom he wanted help from. Basically, Oikawa is stronger than them all because he is currently an S-rank mage. In addition to this, he was known as the Yellow King before Rei's regression. Rei knows that they would have been toast if Oikawa had not arrived just in time to shield them with his barrier magic. Oikawa winks at them, saying he is glad that he made it just in time to save them. Oikawa mentioned that he was in another dungeon, which was a request from the country. However, he was contacted by someone who is none other than Hinata. Oikawa then shocks Rei by telling him that he knows him, since he is Kai's brother. Oikawa assures Rei that he has nothing to worry about because he was merely interested in him. Rei is relieved to hear this, and he finally thanks Oikawa for the assist. Oikawa doesn't take it as something really serious, and he tells Rei that he actually did something impressive to have defeated the boss of the dungeon. Just then, the mana stone from defeating the monster drops, and Oikawa is shocked at how big the stone is. Oikawa figures out that the dungeon boss is pretty strong, and he throws the mana stone to Rei, who barely grabs it before it falls off. Oikawa congratulates Rei, saying he's looking forward to more from him. After saying this, Oikawa steps out of the dungeon, and the team follows suit. When they enter the association building, Yuri mentions that Oikawa is an interesting fellow, and Rei agrees with her. Hinata is shocked when she sees the team coming, and she starts screaming, asking if they are okay. Hinata has been worried about the team since they were taking too long in the dungeon. Hinata scolds Rei for heading straight into the dungeon after submitting his application form, even though the dungeon is more dangerous than the others. Hinata then asks them about the progress of the dungeon, expecting that they would still be at the entrance level. Hinata and her fellow attendants almost have a brain seizure when Rei mentions that they have conquered the entire dungeon. They can't believe their eyes and ears, causing them to scream like maniacs. The information about the Ikebukuro dungeon being conquered soon starts flying around. Guilds start running around to try to reach the person who conquered the dungeon. When addressing the press, Aya says she finally has enough money to cover her sister's medical bills, and in addition, she thanks Rei for the great opportunity. Isoyama and her party members are totally salty when they see this, but Isoyama still wants to believe that Aya is cheating. The same thing applies to Kai, who is utterly pissed about Rei being the one who conquered the dungeon. The news about Rei conquering the dungeon spread everywhere, especially since he was known as colorless before. Group chats went wild with friends calling each other out, suggesting that they all apologize for trash-talking Rei. While everyone is talking about how impressive Rei is, he is thinking about how he is going to get stronger, since he was able to conquer the dungeon thanks to the help he got from others. 3 days later, Rei heads to the association because Hinata summoned him, claiming that there is something he needs to hear. Rei and the girls are shocked when Hinata tells them that they have received a request to conquer a certain dungeon. Aya can't believe this because they just became A-rank mages, and Hinata says this is possible thanks to their recent achievement. Basically, dungeon explorations are usually requested by mages themselves, but being offered a formal request is something the association only allows to a certain number of mages. Aya smiles, telling Rei that everyone is counting on him, but Rei disagrees, saying the entire party is needed. Rei then asks Hinata who made the request, but she tells Rei that she can't answer because the higher-ups told her to keep it a secret. As expected, Yuri wants them to accept the mission just because it sounds fun. Rei is obliged to accept since it was made via the association, so it shouldn't be anything suspicious. Just then, Hinata mentions that an S-rank mage will be accompanying them on the mission. The following day, the party heads to the location where they are to meet the said S-rank mage. Aya is curious to see who the person will turn out to be. Momentarily, they run into the person, and to their greatest surprise, it is Oikawa. As they step into the dungeon, Rei mentions that he never thought Oikawa would be the one to escort them, and Oikawa smiles, saying he already knew, but he wanted to keep it a surprise. Oikawa then mentions that he is looking forward to the mission because the whole world is also watching them. Aya is blown away by how carefree Oikawa is, and Rei agrees with her, but reminds her that the dude is still an S-rank mage even at that. Rei then asks Oikawa if it is true that there is a tricky mechanism inside the dungeon, and Oikawa says yes. Apparently, the scout team came back with a report that there was a wall of fire blocking the path. Rei is curious about this, and he asks how they are supposed to deal with it. Oikawa then reminds them that he has his barrier skill, and as long as he is with them, the firewall means nothing. Rei notices that the dude is overconfident, and he wonders if he thinks the dungeon will be easy. As if Oikawa can hear his thoughts, he tells Rei that he will see how cool he is once he sees him in action, because he will be the one carrying the entire team. Suddenly, a wave of monsters appears on the scene, and Rei tells his team to get ready to fight. He is also interested in seeing how strong an S-rank mage really is. Suddenly, he spots Oikawa sitting in the corner with fear written all over his face. Oikawa tells the trio to handle the monsters because he is not quite familiar with the type of monsters that they are currently going up against. Aya reminds Oikawa of what he said about being the main man, but Rei just tells his team to face the monster and forget about the coward. The trio takes their stance and they start hurling out long-range attacks at the incoming monsters. Yuri confidently goes after the monsters, saying that they are nothing compared to the monsters that they fought in the past. Aya and Yuri take out the majority of the monsters, and Rei finishes off the rest with his fire lance. Oikawa is blown away when he sees this, and after the monsters have been defeated, Aya excitedly celebrates with Rei. Oikawa finally stands up from where he was hiding, claiming that he hates bugs, and he is thankful that they saved his life. Suddenly, some wolves appear from behind and charge toward Oikawa, but he gets serious and pins them down in a square box, ultimately killing them off pretty easily. Rei and his team are shocked when they see this, and Rei asks Oikawa what sort of skill he just used. Oikawa mentions that the skill is called the square box, and it is one of his barrier skills. However, the skill can't be used against a large foe. Rei is completely amazed because he has heard of it before, but this is the first time he will be witnessing it. Once the monsters are taken care of, Oikawa suggests that they keep moving. As Rei walks behind him, he is completely in awe of Oikawa because he is an embodiment of what an S rank should look like. Momentarily, they arrive at the wall of fire, and it is just as the report said. The intensity of the fire can be felt some meters away without even going close. Just then, Oikawa steps forward, and he creates a path through the fire with his barrier magic. The team excitedly walks through the passage, and they soon find another hole, which leads to the boss's room. Since they are all ready, Rei suggests that they move into the boss's chambers. Deep down, Oikawa is waiting to see what Rei is capable of because he wants to know if he is a fraud or he is the real deal. As they step into the room, Rei complains about how hot it is, which obviously signifies the power of the foe they are about to engage. The boss finally steps out, and it turns out to be a level 68 Flamegarm. Just the appearance of the boss alone sends shivers down Rei's spine. Rei panics as the monster walks toward them, and he tells the team to put up a mana barrier. However, Oikawa tells him that there is no need for this. The monster unleashes its flame breath on them, but Oikawa easily blocks it using his barrier magic. This ultimately blows Rei's mind, and Oikawa tells Rei that he will handle defense while they handle offense. Rei acknowledges the order, but he takes a moment to think about what to do. He figures out that the barrier could fail at any time if it gets hit severely. Rei thinks of using his Abyss Flame, but he quickly ditches the idea because the monster is quite fast. And in addition, it is a boss-level monster. Since the mana usage for the Abyss Flame is quite high, Rei figures out that he is just going to have to take down the monster in another way. Rei then leads the charge while telling Yuri and Aya to find a gap to attack. As he approaches the monster, Rei activates his body enhancement and leaps toward it. Rei deceives the monster into thinking he is about to attack him head-on, but Rei maneuvers behind it before landing a critical hit. Yuri and Aya also support from behind as they launch their long-range attacks at the boss monster. Even with the combined attack, the monster remains mobile, and this just confirms Rei's fear that the monster is quite strong. Rei figures out that they are going to be at a disadvantage if the battle continues longer than expected. Rei is already sweating from the intense heat, and he realizes that defeating the monster quickly is paramount. Meanwhile, Oikawa is watching from behind, waiting to see what Rei is going to do, since he has found himself in such a dire situation. Just then, Rei tells Yuri and Aya to start directing their attacks toward the monster's feet instead of its body. Yuri and Aya gladly accept his plan, and they immediately send their attacks to the monster's feet. Aya even takes it a step further by hitting the monster with a skill called Stone Bullet. This forces the monster to start jumping around, but Rei figures out that no matter how agile it is, there is no way it will be able to dodge attacks in the air. Rei leaps toward the monster, and just as he is about to get to the monster, he covers his blade in ice, leaving Oikawa in awe. With the monster unable to move freely in the air, Rei lands a critical hit that sends it crashing to the ground, totally defeating it. The girls rush over to him as usual to congratulate him, but he tells them that it is all thanks to them. Oikawa is impressed with the teamwork that he just saw, and he concludes that Rei is just as the report said. However, Oikawa can see that Rei is still hiding his true power. Just then, Rei suggests that they head back to the association to make their reports, but Oikawa tells him to wait. Oikawa whips out the square box and tells Rei that he would like to test him. Oikawa tells Rei that the box can be used to capture monsters, but at the same time, it can also be used as a method for training. Oikawa then comes clean, telling Rei that he wants to see his true power. Because of this, Oikawa wants Rei to defeat the monsters sealed inside the box. He assures him that he is going to reseal the monsters if it starts getting dangerous, but it will be up to him to tell him to do it or not. Rei finally realizes why Oikawa followed them, and even though he doesn't know his true motives yet, Rei cannot let go of an opportunity to gain more experience. Rei then accepts Oikawa's request, and Oikawa unseals the square box. Just then, a terrifying black shadow appears from the box. Apparently, the monster residing in the box is one that changes its appearance depending on the fear of its opponent. Oikawa is excited to see what sort of appearance he will see, and just as expected, Rei's greatest fear, Kronos, gently emerges from the box. Oikawa is shocked to see this, since it is the first time he will be seeing such a monster. While Oikawa is excited about the whole new experience, Rei is freaking out. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment next part in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.